Welcome, one and all, to Pacific414 Pop Talk. I am your host, Mike. Tonight, I have several articles that I'm going to go over. One talking about the sequel to Godzilla vs. Kong, another concerning Tron 3, and then a few of the other ones I have are related to Star Trek and also Kanye West and, well, DC Comics, to be sure. And let's see, we already have a comment from a good friend of mine, Box Friday Nights. If you haven't subscribed to Spock's Friday Nights, well, I will get you the link here in just a little bit, but he does great content over on his channel. He is currently working on episode 2 of his episodic series. And if you haven't seen episode 1, definitely check it out. Good work. And every Friday, he streams Star Trek Online. And he's doing a great job right now with his content. He has 212 subscribers, and he could definitely use your fandom. So here you go. Here is the link to Spock's Friday Nights. There we go. And it is now posted for all in the chat. Not a problem, Spock. We help each other out. Yeah, the first Godzilla movie was a great movie. As far as Godzilla versus Kong, the only thing I liked was the kaiju fights. I didn't particularly care for the human parts. Every time the humans came on screen, I'm all right, come on, hurry up. Let's get back to the kaiju. And it's no problem at all, Spock. Thanks, Spock. Really appreciate that. So let's go ahead and get underway here. This article comes from Superhero Hype, and it's a new website to me, but it's also where I first saw the story. And for anyone who might be curious, I look around the internet looking at various different pop culture sites, entertainment sites to find articles to use for each and every broadcast. And I will admit there are times where I look at the links that I've gathered and I think, ooh, I have far too many links. So I'm never going to get through this. So some links end up being cut from the team. So with this article right here, it was posted on Superhero Hype on Monday. It's by Baronero, and it says Godzilla vs. Kong sequel will begin production in Australia later this year. And it says Godzilla. All right, try that again. Godzilla vs. Kong sequel will begin production in Australia later this year, despite being released day and date in theaters and on HBO Max. Godzilla vs. Kong was one of 2021's box office success stories, and now that story will continue with a new Godzilla vs. Kong sequel. Via Deadline, the next movie in Legendary Entertainment's MonsterVerse will shoot in Queensland, Australia later this year. The first Godzilla vs. Kong and Kong Skull Island were also shot in Queensland. So it goes on to say the government of Australia may have jumped the gun here because Legendary and Warner Brothers have yet to formally announce the sequel. It is also unknown which cast members will return and what the story may be about. Throughout the first film, Godzilla and Kong fought for dominance among the Titans. However, they ultimately joined forces to defeat Mechagodzilla. The movie ended with an uneasy truce between Godzilla and Kong, with the Great Ape returning to the Hollow Earth. And before I forget, let me go ahead and post the link to the article in the chat. This way you all can read it at your leisure. It says Godzilla vs. Kong director Adam Wingard has previously suggested that the next film could explore the history of the Hollow Earth and delve into the origins of the Titans themselves. Since Khan is now essentially the ruler of Hollow Earth, that's a logical next step. Additionally, all right, there we go. There is a separate MonsterVerse project that has no involvement with Warner Brothers Pictures. Back in January, Legendary announced that Apple TV Plus is developing a Godzilla spinoff. The proposed show was created by Chris Black and comic book writer Matt Fraction. According to the early reports, that show will follow one family's journey to uncover its buried secrets and a legacy linking them to the secret organization known as Monarch. Assuming the Australian government's timetable is correct, formal announcements about the sequel's director and cast should be made soon. And ask in the last paragraph, what do you want to see in the Godzilla vs. Kong sequel? Let us know in the comments below. Well, you already heard what I had to say. Less humans, more kaiju. Because I'm sorry, humans don't always make the story interesting. Sometimes the human characters drag on the story. And also, for anyone who might be interested, and this is just an option, I'm not saying anyone has to join, because again, it's an option that I like to give people. Because I view Pop Talk as, an open mic type of deal. I have posted the StreamYard link into the chat. It is actually now pinned onto the chat. So if anybody would like to join, you're more than welcome. All right, so let's see. Spock is saying Godzilla fighting Khan was cool. I just didn't like the design of Mechagodzilla. Ready Player One had a cooler design. Yeah, it did. It did. And I saw Ready Player One. I liked it for what it was. And Spock also says 2014 Godzilla had the most immersive storyline that you could feel you're in the middle of the action, especially if you saw the movie in IMAX. Only part I hate about 2014 is Cranston dying. Yeah, I can agree with you there. I didn't like that particular choice either. Bryan Cranston should have been in all three movies, not Millie Bobby Brown, who only got popular because of Stranger Things. You are correct in that. Spock also says 2014 had the best human moments. Yes, it did. Unlike Godzilla vs. Kong, where, as I've already said, every time the humans came on the screen, I was feeling that they were dragging down the movie. They weren't helping the movie, they were dragging it down. I don't know about you, but when I go to see a movie called Godzilla vs. Kong, the last thing I think about is humans and their impact in the story, because it's about those big kaiju going at it. And please welcome at this time Spock from Spock's Friday Nights. Welcome, brother.
How's it going?
It's going good, man.
Thought I'd jump in here. Yeah, I just got back from work. I don't really have much to do, and I saw you were talking about Godzilla, so like perfect time to jump in. But yeah, man, keep it going. This is pretty interesting. I didn't know that they were planning on keeping the franchise going after the third film not doing so well.
Yeah, and see, here's my opinion on this as well. I think Godzilla versus Kong should have just left as a standalone. Yes, their fight was a standstill, but leave it like that. At the end of the day, no one won, but no one lost either. What do you think about that, Spock?
Oh, sorry, my mic was muted. I think that's a good idea because what are they gonna do from this point? They're just gonna fight another monster together.
Mm-hmm. Not to say there's not, any monsters to choose from, you know, either series. There are plenty of monsters they can choose from, but you know, they're just going to be repeating the same thing that we saw in Godzilla versus Kong. Not to
I
say
agree. I
that.
mean, I also think that there's a plethora of different monsters that they could choose from. There's still Monster X. Hold on a second.
Mm-hmm. Very true. But yeah, it'll still be interesting. I'm not saying I wouldn't go see it when it comes out. I
Yeah.
probably will.
Yeah, like they have a good choice of characters to choose from. I think they honestly should have stuck with the guy from the first movie who played as a John Lennon lookalike. I forget his name. As well as they should have killed Bryan Cranston off in the first movie because he could have played a very good significant role in these three movies since he was very close with what was it, Japanese intelligence.
Yep.
He could speak Japanese too. He was a really cool character. That whole scene in the first movie where his son walks in his room and just sees entire walls just completely covered in newspapers and all these sightings talking about these titans. So he was pretty much the first person to investigate into the Mutos before, pretty much any other civilian organization did. And they just killed him off in a bridge collapse. I just did not like that choice at all.
Well, it seems like death by bridge collapse is one way to kill an iconic character or a character that could have been iconic. I mean,
yeah.
heck, look at
I mean, it makes
Generations.
sense. People always say, like, doesn't it make sense that he died that way, though? I mean, like, yeah, anybody dying in a bridge accident, anyone getting in a bridge accident like that's most likely gonna die. But for Bryan Cranston's character, they should have kept him alive because he just was the most, I would say, entertaining human element in the entire story. Because the son he had, who was pretty much, left over after he passed away, he was a good actor, but I didn't really get that same kind of intensity that I did with Bryan Cranston when, say, he was in that scene where he was talking about his wife and how somebody killed his wife, something killed his wife, and how he's just losing his mind. That's one of the best scenes, I think, in 2014. And we didn't really get that in the next two, unfortunately, because, different directors and such.
Well, also, I mean, regardless of what some might say, it's just a monster movie. But having an actor like Bryan Cranston being able to relate to the audience how severe this is, how.
I mean, I can understand people's point on that. That's why, I've never clung on too much to this franchise, only 2014, because people are like, oh, why are you taking it so seriously? It's just a monster movie. I did appreciate, though, what they were trying to do in 2014. They were doing a monster movie, but at the same time, they were putting a horror element to where this kind of feels real, where all of this is just happening to our modern day society. But in the next two movies, we all have these super high jets. We're flying around and we're fighting the Mutos now. I don't know. This is just silly. It's become Pacific Rim now. At the next point, we're going to be getting a giant robot to fight in. So they're pretty much going to be ripping off Pacific Rim if they keep going with this franchise.
That's true.
Because what did we see? We just saw Mechagodzilla in Godzilla vs. Kong. So that's already hinting that humans have the technology to make a colossal giant, which is just stupid. I don't think they should have that technology at all until the 24th century. But yep, they have it. That's what kind of threw me off and a lot of other people from these two movies is the massive tech boost they've got from the first movie. It's just stupid.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. And hey, Captain Trex, good to see you, buddy.
Yes, and Captain, if you'd like to join the panel, you're more than welcome to. I pinned the StreamYard link to the very top.
So what's our next bit of news here?
Our next bit of news here, brother, is actually Star Trek related. It's actually related to a very good episode. Okay, so this next article here comes from the Hollywood Reporter, and it was posted yesterday. It's by Phil Pillaretto, and it says, "Is this a joke? How a classic Star Trek episode broke the rules of the franchise." Actor-director Jonathan Frakes and writer Brandon Braga look back at the time loop episode Cause and Effect, which debuted 30 years ago today, and it has a quote here that says, "There's got to be a mistake here. The acts just keep repeating." Well, let's get into the article and see where that quote's coming from. But before I do, I want to get your quick thoughts on the episode Cause and Effect of Star Trek The Next Generation.
Oh man, it's been a while since I've seen that episode. I just know Kelsey Grammer displays a hell of performance in that episode. As well as we're getting to see the motion picture outfit. Oh, it wasn't the motion picture, sorry. It was the Wrath of Khan outfits once again. Because he was pretty much from the past and they were talking from a captain to the past. It was really cool. It's an episode I'd highly recommend rewatching.
I highly recommend it too. It's one of my favorites of season 5. So the article starts off by saying, "I thought Brandon was effing with me." It's easy to see why Star Trek The Next Generation actor Jonathan Frakes had that reaction when he first read writer Brandon Braga's script for Cause and Effect 30 years ago. Neither the series nor television in general had ever attempted something like that before. Okay. Frakes had the challenging task of both acting in and directing the deceptively simple season 5 episode, which finds Captain Picard and the crew of the Enterprise D stuck in a time loop. The loop results in the crew dying over and over again as their ship explodes upon contact with another starship.
Yep.
The very old USS Bozeman. With each time loop, Dr. Crusher, Gates McFadden, gets to play a detective as she leads the crew's efforts to escape the loop.
Yep.
The result is riveting, tension-filled hour of television unlike any before or really since. Cause and Effect not only made TV history when it aired on March 23rd, 1992, it also quickly found its way near the top of many fans' list of favorite Star Trek episodes. According to Frakes and Braga, that was not something the production anticipated. Braga's script was seen as a gamble as it challenged the tried and true episodic formula that has fueled the franchise since the 1960s original series. In honor of Cause and Effect celebrating its 30th anniversary this year, the Hollywood Reporter revisited the episode with Braga and Frakes for a deep dive into the making of the sci-fi classic. Originally, I was a staff writer at the time, and I was pitching to the late TNG showrunner and executive producer Michael Piller a Rashomon-style idea I had wanted to do. Braga tells The Hollywood Reporter about how he came upon what would become Cause and Effect. Braga had always wanted to tell the same story from several points of view, one that would unfold several times, but he couldn't quite figure out how to expand that kernel into a full hour of TV until it dawned on him. Why not just tell the same story over and over? That seemed like something I haven't seen before. Initially, there was some doubt that anyone would ever see it. We weren't really committed to doing time travel at the time, Braga recalls. Trek creator Gene Roddenberry, who was still alive, wasn't a big fan of time travel because I think he felt it was a bit of a science fiction cliche, and he'd done it with the classic original series sitting on the edge of forever. Braga got around that strict mandate by arguing that time travel doesn't have to be just traveling back in time to the past. one could be forced to repeat it by getting caught up in a time loop. That realization got the episode closer to a green light. And it didn't hurt that Braga and Ron Moore, the pair that later would co write the TNG series finale, All Good Things, had a somewhat favorable status on staff that allowed for the outside of the box idea to squeeze past the very specific parameters that Pillar and executive producer Rick Berman had about what could pass for a next gen episode. Despite Braga's cachet as one of the show's strongest writers, the initial script for Cause and Effect was met with some trepidation. The early reactions to the script were similar to the reactions that the audience had when watching the episode, which was confusion. Braga remembers because you're reading the script and you're like, wait a minute, there's got to be a mistake here. The acts just keep repeating. Is this a joke? In fact, following the explosive teaser that sees the Enterprise blow up, Braga opens each subsequent act of the script by repeating the exact same or similar dialogue from other acts. Contrary to popular belief, the episode wasn't just an easy cut and paste affair for the writer, which is quickly evident if you read a script. The time loop format confused audiences to the point where infamously viewers called in complaints to their local affiliates that ran the syndicated episode, thinking the repeating acts were a glitch.
Bruh.
How that does
Oh my god. Continue. That's ridiculous. Continue.
No, go ahead and say what you want to say, because I mean, think about this. This is the early 90s, and
I
every
suppose, yeah.
syndicated station was responsible for their copy of the episode that they had, and with
I can
all
understand a slim reason of why people would see it that like as a glitch.
Mhm.
I felt it was kind of seamless though. The transitions like giving off the impression that this is a repeat, but whatever. It happens.
And the article continues by saying how that design would unfold visually fell to Frakes, who lucked out with this episode following 3 previous directorial efforts on TNG, which included such memorable hours as The Offspring, Reunion, and The Drumhead. And I can't wait till we get to The Offspring on Tuesday Night Trek.
Yeah, same here.
And the article continues by saying, at first, I didn't really get that what Brennan was trying to do was a different kind of Rashomon story. It was an evolution almost of the way the characters understand was going on. From there, Frake said it was like an advanced director's test on how to shoot the same scenes in different enough ways that the audience didn't lose out on the new information that every loop provides. There are only so many shots you can do, Franks explains. So stylistically, we try different things for different scenes. And JP Farrell, who cut the episode, deserves a lot of the credit for making those sequences work. We had a plan that we needed to shoot each scene more than one way. We would shoot the master from either side of the room, but I really enjoyed the challenge. Once I realized that Brandon wasn't effing with me, it was fun. There we go. Oops, skipped on me again. Frakes even discovered a shot that TNG had never done before. I think during prep, I was with Doug Dean. He was my first AD, and we're shooting one of the many scenes in the conference room, the observation lounge that Frakes recalls. And we got an overhead shot of the conference room that we hadn't used before. I said, what if we go all the way up there? And Doug said, well, nobody's gone there. To which I was like, Oh, all the better. Frakes and his crew also found ways to shoot the familiar set from new positions, such as filming a master from Riker's side of the bridge or starting from the station manned by Ensign Rowe. In one important loop, Frakes even borrowed from one of the most famous movie director ever. We did a lot of those Spielberg style push-ins and close-ups. We started with Crusher figuring out first, then Dorn as he figures it out during a poker game, and then Picard later in the scene push him we push in on him reading a book as he realizes he's read that section before. So there were enough kind of signature visual metaphors for the characters figuring it out and agreeing on what was going on. One of the hardest things for Braga was cracking just how the characters figured out their exit strategy from the loop. The two most challenging things about the script, Braga recalls, was how to get them physically out of the time loop. That was the main hurdle, and the second thing was the crew explaining to themselves and therefore the audience just what the hell was going on here. For the former, Braga turned to his best resource, his fellow writers in the room. It was Michael Piller, Ron Moore, Joe Minowski, and Jerry Taylor. I remember being in the room and I needed help. How the hell does this resolve itself? Braga can't recall if it was him or one of his colleagues that came up with data seeing the three rank pips on Riker's collar and using that to send a message to a future loop. But he does remember that we had an amazing staff of writers and we helped each other. All right. Unfortunately, Braga was largely on his own when it came to the second most difficult thing about writing the episode, the briefing room scene. Here, Geordi explains to his shipmates that they are caught in a very Trekkian temporal causality loop. Ironically, Braga found himself in a time loop of his own, rewriting the scene over and over again. It was my first big technobabble scene, so it couldn't just sound cool. It had to sound plausible. It had to resolve all the clues that had been accumulating, says Braga. In addition to all the explaining, you have to bring your own voice to it, too. You try to pepper in some cool or shocking moments, like when Picard asks, "How long have we been in the loop?" and Geordi responds with something like, "It could be years." But Pillar had me rewrite the scene so many times. I remember over Christmas break of that year, I was working on that scene. Okay, goes on to say, the episode culminates with Picard faced with the same two choices to get out of the Smiths that got him into it. In order to avoid collision with the Starship Bozeman, he can follow Data's suggestion of using a tractor beam to push the Enterprise out of the way, or go with Riker's advice and decompress the main shuttle bay, allowing the explosive reaction to kick them out of the way. Thanks to Data's message of 3 throughout the ship, the android knows it's his option that dooms the ship, so he goes with Riker's shuttle bay plan and saves the crew. Originally, this climactic sequence concluded with a visual gag, glimpses like after images of all the previous times the Enterprise and the Bozeman crashed. And please welcome at this time, Captain Trek. Welcome, Captain.
Thank you.
Ew.
How are you doing this evening?
Doing okay, thank you.
Good, good.
Continue on.
All right, brother. That was cut for budget, Braga says, as was the initial concept for the Bozeman to be depicted as a ship from Kirk's era of the original series, with her crew wearing classic series uniforms. Instead, the production kit-bashed the Reliant Starship model from the Wrath of Khan to create the Bozeman. They also redressed the Enterprise D battle bridge, said to resemble something closer to the Khan era of the 1980s, and put the crew members of the Bozeman in Wrath of Khan style uniforms. All right. The episode's final scene hinges on a surprise cameo from a future TV sitcom legend, Cheers, Kelsey Grammer, as Bozeman Captain Yates. Batesman, I'm sorry. Why did I say Captain Yates? I was thinking about Cassidy. That's why.
Two different captains, but
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Grammer's casting as a captain who was seemingly been stuck in this loop for at least 90 years is one of Frake's favorite stories from the production. And it also makes ask a question: whatever happened to the crew of the Bozeman? This was pre-Frasier, Frake says. Before he had his spin-off, he was just a member of the Cheers ensemble, and they shot the show right around the corner from us because we were on the same lot, and Kelsey was a Trekker, a huge Star Trek fan, and he asked to be on the show like a number of actors that were fans, like Whoopi Goldberg did. That's how I understood it. It was just one day of shooting, and I had no idea, but it was fun to shoot. Fun is a word both the fans of Cause and Effect and its creators throw around often when discussing this landmark episode of the series, which after 3 decades still remains an outstanding and popular installment of the franchise, which currently clocks in at over 800 episodes. Or if you're like me and you don't particularly care for the new stuff, you say the original 735.
Correct.
And this article concludes by saying, when you're writing it, you have no idea it's going to turn out to be what it is today. Braga explains, I mean, Frakes did a great job directing it, but I could never have predicted that we'd be talking about this 30 years later. You just don't know. You're not sure if it's working, which is maybe a good sign when you're doing something new. But it was unclear to anybody whether or not the audience was going to accept it. Well, we did accept it. It's one of my personal favorites.
Oh, I agree. Of course, I'm wondering how stupid those people were that called in thinking it was repeating itself, because it was quite clear that it was the same scene being shot again and again, but it wasn't exactly identical.
Mm-hmm. I mean, when you're watching the episode, yeah, you do see the same thing happening, but if you look closely, or sometimes it wasn't even that hard to point out, you could see that they did a little tweak here, a little tweak there.
I thought.
How about you, Spock? Go ahead,
Sorry,
Cap.
I'm dealing with like lag issues this entire time. Let me try reconnecting.
All right, brother. Go ahead, Captain.
I thought it was brilliant. I mean, it was something that had never been done before, as far as Star Trek is concerned. And it wasn't time travel. You know, it was like the article was talking about, a repeating time loop. Very much like Groundhog Day, but different.
Mm-hmm. And Groundhog Day, just to get on a quick Groundhog Day tangent, that's a great movie.
Oh, absolutely.
It is a great movie, yeah. But Cause and Effect, it was kind of meant to confuse the audience, if you ask me. And eventually finding out that the ship that was crashing into them was just Kelsey Grammer was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I was always wanting to see him as a starship captain, and I used to watch Frasier a lot with my family, and he was a very funny actor. So I'm like, it'd be cool one day this guy was in Star Trek as a doctor or something, because he really has that personality. But they made him a captain, which was interesting, and not just a captain, but of the late 23rd century.
Mm-hmm. Which, up until that point, we'd only gotten little sprinkles here and there about any connection to previous Trek, because Gene Roddenberry was adamant that Next Generation not depend so much on the original series.
Yeah, yeah. And that was thanks to a lot of the writers too of the show, because the first season really is like trying to tie in the original series and this new generation, and try to not alienate the fans too much, because everyone's coming from the original series at this point in the movies. But they still kind of play it off like an original series episode for most of the first season. And then, like we're seeing right now in season 3 with Paul and everybody, it's kind of changing into something else. It's becoming its own thing and not relying too much on previous incarnations, which is a good leap for a show, especially for Star Trek, because that was very risky in terms of if it was going to flop or not. But they just expanded the universe even more than people could imagine without ruining it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And Deep Space Nine and all the other shows after it, but it kind of ends at 2005 for me.
Agreed.
But what was the reasoning of why this broke the rules of the franchise? Because I was lacking out for that part.
Well, one of the reasons was the fact that they had never done an episode where you're witnessing the same events over and over again.
Right.
Previous episodes had dealt with the crew going back into the past and trying to solve something, but this never had the crew go back in time to a certain period of time. They were just stuck in the same period of time, but doing the motions over and over again. It's like playing the same song over and over again on a constant loop.
That's true. But there is Groundhog Day, so they could argue that is a whole thing that could be, I don't know. I think it makes sense to kind of dive into time loops. It doesn't really break the franchise or break the rules of the franchise. If anything, it bends the rules.
Again, yeah, I agree. Because it wasn't time travel; it was, time fragmented.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You see this fragmented time repeating over and over again, and then when the collision happens, it resets it.
Yeah, in Groundhog Day, Bill Murray's character of Phil had to relive the same day over and over again until he got it right. Once he got it right, it broke that curse and he was able to move on to the next day.
And the one difference is obviously with Groundhog Day, it was the exact same day.
Mm-hmm.
When they finally escaped the time loop, they had to reset the computers to figure out how long they had actually been stuck in there. So time had really gone by while they were still repeating this one time loop.
Because they missed several days after they got out of the time loop.
Yes. 18, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I could be off.
But it just goes to show how classic, Star Trek, whether it's the original series, Next Gen, DS9, Voyager, or Enterprise, was able to come up with new and exciting and different stories.
Well, because they were really being asked, since the show was taking off, especially around season 4, because they were the first Star Trek show to have 4 seasons, they were really thinking of out-of-the-box ideas that we haven't seen before. So time loops was one of them. We haven't really seen
Mhm.
that before. But there's just a plethora of other ideas that they went through in this show that you got to give them a lot of credit for, because it's just how did they come up with that? It's anybody's guess. There's so many ideas. I wonder how the heck did they think of this? It's just I don't really see that kind of thinking nowadays. Not even just Star Trek, but a lot of TV shows. So it's something to be appreciated, especially in Next Generation, for its having seven seasons.
Well,
Deep Space
also,
Nine, carries
yeah,
it only more.
and also Braga asking his colleagues for help, saying, "How
Yeah.
do we, come up with the solution?" But ultimately, still having to do it on his own. But still, I don't hear about the current writers' room for Star Trek, either Picard or Discovery, you know, coming together saying, no, we got to stick to what the franchise has already established. No, they don't care about what the franchise has already established.
Well, unfortunately, and as you'll hear in a lot of places, this is run more by a committee than anything else. So the committee decides what needs to be done. The writers do what the committee says, and it kind of fits together, and it kind of, doesn't work.
No,
A writer needs the ability to create something without hindrances. Now, yes, there were rules in Star Trek, but if you write within the rules, okay. And if you write an episode that goes outside of the rules, okay, well, okay. Now here's where it needs to be changed. I think the writers need to be allowed freedom. Writing by committee, you're not going to get a true writer writing a story like you had with this. Just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
I realized it was fan fiction, but one of the story ideas I came up with when I was writing my own Star Trek series was a way for the Changeling and the Borg to actually combine. Yes, like I said, it was fan fiction, but I was still trying to be creative and say, how can I do this and make it at least somewhat believable?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
And
that's the best part about Next Generation for me. They didn't copy too many of the stories from TOS. The only one I would say is Naked Now, because it's copying the Naked Time. But it's honestly like, I wouldn't even say it's copying. It's a callback. It's supposed to be a callback. It's appreciating past episodes, and the reason everybody's here and watching Next Generation is because of funny episodes like that with Hulu waving around his sword and going crazy. It's just, I don't even consider those copies. They're just trying to entertain the fans of Star Trek. Like, who didn't enjoy the Naked Time,
Yep. Well also with the naked. Go ahead, Kevin. Go ahead.
Well, the fact that the doctor was saying, okay, what is the cure to this? I know there's something, and she makes a direct memory. Oh, this is something that happened in this time period. So it wasn't like they were trying to hide anything. They were being very upfront. This happened back during the original series. This was, a direct callback where they weren't trying to hide anything at all.
Yeah. They were just paying tribute, you could say, because of... They're trying to dive into that. I think that was one of the ideas in one of the past episodes that really spiced up the creator. Whoever was writing the Naked Now, whoever was given that opportunity to write their own episode was probably a big fan of the Naked Time, and just decided to make their own version of it. Not their own version, but kind of how should I say, remaster it, because you can definitely see in that snow scene when we're, Spock beams down with his suit and he sees everybody's like frozen and on their desk. The one compared to the Next Generation where Geordi just walks in that room and everybody's just frozen. You can tell like the visuals really stepped up. So they're just paying tribute. That's all I have to say. They're really paying tribute to. That's what Next Generation does mostly in season 1 is they pay tribute minus a few wacky episodes. But yeah, dude, I we gotta talk more about this when we get to next Tuesday Night Trek.
Oh yeah. And continuing on, this little talk right now, even when we had trials and tribulations for DS9, they painstakingly went back and looked at, pictures and in various shots of the episode so they can recreate as much of, the original series look and feel for trials and tribulations that they wanted to have. But,
Yeah.
one of the examples is actually building a new filming model of the Enterprise. Which you don't see that a lot nowadays. I mean, the reason I'm saying that is look at Discovery. When we have the Enterprise, it doesn't look like the original Enterprise.
Mm-mm.
Meanwhile, these guys, they look at the Enterprise that was in the Smithsonian. They look at the Micro Machine version of the Enterprise
Yeah.
at the time.
I mean,
various
look at the
model
movies
kits.
too, because the movies that came out before Next Generation when they were showing the Excelsior class and the one that eventually Sulu commanded. In Next Generation, you see they made the Excelsior class have an appearance and it looks exactly the same. They didn't change any bit of it. So why can't shows just do that now? It's just exactly like what Michael Dorn said. Any company that controls a massive franchise that previously didn't own that franchise is going to always try to make their own cover of it, their own face of it, just so it lays some kind of... Because you got to think of the people who are just growing up now watching Discovery maybe. They're going to think that's Star Trek, and that's the sad part. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make their own version of it most of the time. And that goes for a lot of franchises.
And I've been told numerous times to just let Star Trek go, let the franchise die. But no, I'm going to continue to carry the flag of Star Trek from 66 to 2005 and trumpet until people watch it.
Here's the sad thing. It can canonically die, you can say. But fan creations, like fan films and all that stuff, can still carry on Star Trek legacies. Because I see so many fan films on YouTube that are just 100 times better than what I'm seeing from Paramount right now.
Well, even Sunday during Pop Talk, we were taking a look at the video game Star Trek Resurgence and, the clips that were available to watch. And to me, I'm looking at it, I'm going, I don't care if it's one of those games where you have to select A, B, or C for your decision. I want to play this game just to find out what the story is about. Because in those short clips, it felt like a genuine Star Trek story.
Game. Yeah. I agree. I can't wait to play Resurgence.
So, moving on from this article, our next article that we are going to talk about is actually concerning DC Comics. So that one's open and the other one's closed. So this article comes from Bounding into Comics. It was written by JB Augustine. It was posted on their site on the 22nd, and it says Rob Liefeld confirms DC Comics evictions from Burbank Warner Media office. That umbrella guy reacts. All right, so it goes on to say DC Comics eviction from their new home office in the same Burbank building as the rest of Warner Media is being confirmed by Comic Pro and his inside sources. Deadpool and Youngblood creator Rob Liefeld says he and his SoCal DC buddies can absolutely verify the ouster and the publisher's new stripped down work model. Can confirm this is absolutely true from my SoCal DC buddies. Liefeld tweeted along with Bleeding Cool's story. Shared workplace, hot desk model in full effect. Reduce office force, staff again. Bleeding Cool was the first to break the news and explain that the hot desk model and shared workspace mean everything is collectivized and no one has their own desk or office anymore. Making it worse is this is just the latest reduction in DC Comics means and operation. Pundit and YouTube creator that Umbrella Guy reacted to Liefeld's confirmation and the entire story, blaming the privileged attitude of today's comic pros and wokeness in the industry. Well, I mean, look at the sales of the new Superman comics. They're abysmal. Citing details from the Bleeding Cool article, it becomes clear DC Comics personnel weren't being allowed back into the building to get their belongings left behind after a period of working from home. That should say something about your status, Tug said. All right. DC Comics occupied 3 floors of real estate until it was ripped from their grasp by Warner Media, which is going to use the space for something else. While the former finds a new location for themselves close by, Tug points out this is not the first time they were forced to move. Come on. According to Bleeding Cool, staff and creatives were doing such a good job working from home during the pandemic that it dawned on Warner they had an expense they no longer had to cover. So they're saying, you did such a good job, we're going to fire some of you. We're going to move some of you into shared offices. Yeah, that's a great excuse right there, isn't it? Tug observed. The move and hot desk policy were initially kept quiet, with sources to go by until a DC staffer posted evidence of packing up their cubicle while confirming the new conditions they have to work under. It's a far cry from the personalized office space DC Comics prided itself on for years because they made money, Tug noted. Rubber band balls, neon signs, and potted plants were a common sight around the workplace in the good old days of Dan DiDio. They justify the shared workspace, says Tug and Bleeding Cool, by virtue of the reality not everyone will work at the same time. Whoever is present gets to sit where they like, which Tug considers soul-crushing and suppressing of individuality. Well, isn't that something that they're trying to do away with anyhow nowadays? In a nutshell, they went from the impression Warner cared about them, like DC Comics staff were part of the family, to the first come, first serve, fight over desk, pencils, and materials. This disheartening development for DC Comics workforce is part of a trend Tug has been discussing for years. Manga overtaking domestic comic sales in the West, even though it props up overall comic sales in the US because of the way the latter is measured. Largely, Tug says the attitude toward fans for those in the industry brought this decline on them all. True. like most Hollywood industries, that is what's happening. And what do you guys think? Oh, and Spock must be having internet trouble because he just left.
Must be. Well, the problem is they're honestly the ones who brought it upon themselves.
Mm-hmm.
With the, well, if you don't like it, do it yourself. Okay. You had people who started making independent comics who weren't before. They're, I've bought a couple of indie comics, and I wouldn't go out and go shopping for comic books. I don't think they're worth the money that they're charging for them now. But the indie stuff, wow. Some of it can be expensive, but some of it isn't bad priced.
Mm-hmm.
And you get some really good artwork. So, yeah, I fully support the independent ones. These corporate ones, they got used to the cushy job, they got used to the cushy condition, and then, well, okay, we got to cut back. So now you don't get to pick a desk anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And they've gotten too used to, oh, we all get a desk. No. I mean, I remember working in a call center where there were people on different shifts who thought that a certain desk should be just for them. Are you out of your mind? Unless they were in an office. No, this is no. This is a community thing.
Mm-hmm.
You have 3 shifts or 4, whatever, and it was common practice, and I don't see an issue with it personally.
I don't see an issue with it at all, considering where comics in general are going when you look at DC and Marvel.
Yeah.
I mean, getting to your point about independent comic book creators, look at Ethan Van Sciver and his work with his Cyberfrog series, and the artwork he does for that. It's beautiful artwork.
Absolutely beautiful.
I mean, I look at his artwork and think I can draw, but I can't draw like that.
Well, that gives you a new goal to shoot for.
Yeah.
I can't draw, so that would be. I could do shading, but I can't do the drawing itself. That's my downfall.
And I'm also like you, where I don't feel so sorry for DC and Marvel right now. They brought it upon themselves. You reap what you sow.
Exactly. I'm not saying I'm glad that they're getting what they deserve, but they really are getting what they deserve.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they'll have some, I don't know, pity on other people if they really look around at the real world and see what's going on. Who knows? Some of them may open their eyes.
I was going to say, this may force some of those people who would now have to share an office to look for work elsewhere, or, like you said, create their own content just so they can have their work shown and get noticed.
And that may be the best way to do it, is to create their own content. Right now is probably among the best times to do it, where you can go to different sites like Indiegogo and other crowd fundraising sites where you can raise money. Now, of course, there are people that have started a campaign with nothing done, which I wouldn't recommend. But if you've got an idea and you're along in the process, sure, why not? Raise the money, get the thing printed, and go. I fully support that idea. And yeah, I had to wait. I had to wait a month before mine shipped. Ooh, how bad. Horrible. Because things had to be finished.
Well, I was going to say, to me, having to wait for, an issue of an independent creator's comic to be, finalized, it makes the anticipation that much more, because that creator's taking their time to give you the best product that they possibly can. Unlike a company like Marvel or DC that has to answer to so many different corporate heads.
Mm-hmm. And they've got these. You've got hundreds of thousands of copies of each panel and blah, blah, blah. And they're reusing the same panels over and over again. And it's like, no. And these, we're talking hand-drawn, hand-done things that are, yes, reprinted. But we're not talking, we're talking new scenes every time. So there's heart in these, whereas the corporate has lost all the heart. It's just kind of, here you go. This is what you get.
Well, even the Star Trek prequel comic that came out before the first J.J. Abrams movie, when it's showing a panel of the Enterprise E, it's the same drawing each and every time. It's like, come on. You can draw other shots of the Enterprise E if you need a frame of reference. Put the movies in, First Contact, Insurrection, Nemesis, put those in. Or, look at a picture of the model online. You can see it.
I mean, even if you're going to take only a slightly different angle where you only have to draw in a quarter of the picture each time, going around, you're still changing it. It's not the identical shot. It's kind of like going with that episode we were talking about with Star Trek, where it was the same but different. They could do the same thing with the comics where it's the same but different. But they choose not to.
I remember being at a convention where one of the production people from Next Generation was at it, and he was talking about how many times they thought of the idea of blowing up the Enterprise for cause and effect, and the different size models that they were considering on using just for certain, shots of it getting blown up. And I always found that interesting because I'm sure you know the history of Next Generation, where they had 3 primary filming models. They had the larger model, they had the 6-foot model, and they had a 4-foot model that they used.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, yeah, that's some size difference is it's a funny thing. And it made it easier for filming the different shots they had. Yeah.
It's like, I remember reading one time that it was the 4-foot model that they kit bashed for the All Good Things version of the Enterprise with the third nacelle and the Lance phaser array. And
I never liked the third nacelle. I always thought that looked stupid.
it never seemed appropriate, especially for a Galaxy class starship, you know.
I mean, personally, I liked when they had the doubled up nacelles. When they had, if they added a nacelle, they added, instead of 2, it was 4.
Mm-hmm.
So they should have had, 2 up top like they do on the Next Generation, and then 2 down low.
Yep.
That would have been more appropriate. And they've looked cool. The third nacelle was just, what idiot designed this thing?
Who designed it? Who approved it?
And like I said, I love Star Trek. I do. 66 to 05. Love Star Trek. But I could pick apart the things I don't like, but still love it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you and I could probably sit for hours talking about different characters that we liked and the different characters that we put a shoved down on airlock.
Absolutely. Pulaski being one. Anyhow, back to the story. I digress.
But yeah, I'd say it's a shame that that's happening to DC Comics, but not really. And for those people who lost their jobs, well, go find another one with an employer that'll actually appreciate your work, or start your own. Because that's what a lot of us on YouTube are doing. We're tired of getting one spin versus another, so we do our own live streams. Captain Trek and I are a perfect example of 2 people who do our own live streams each and every day in Captain Trek's case. And in my case, I try to give you Pop Talk live every Sunday and Wednesday, unless, something is coming up where I can't give you the live Sunday edition of Pop Talk. But I'm always going to try and make sure that I can give you the Wednesday version. It's like, tuning in every morning to listen to Captain Trek on Morning Brew and, his various panelists that he has on there. You do a good job. And I'm not just saying that because you're on here. I'm saying that because I tune in regularly and you do a good job.
Thank you. It's funny because there are people that are like, oh, well, I'd love to come on. Okay, get a hold of me. And there are others that's like, oh, cool, I'll come on. I shoot them a link and boom, they're right there.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it. That's the funny thing, because I've had times where, it's kind of not much going on, and other times where, like I had a 650 celebration where everybody who I sent the link to came. It's like, holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
I got Tom from Midnight's Edge, Mexican Iron Man, Loki. I had Fat Steven Seagal.
Mm-hmm.
It was wow. It was fun.
I mean, it had to make you feel real good, man.
It did. Like I said, I'm not used to everybody showing up when I send out a link, and then all of a sudden, doom. Okay, well, cool.
I mean, you sent me the link. I said, give me a few moments and I'll be right there.
But
As soon as
no,
I saw the link, I'm like, okay, turn on the mic, make sure everything sounds good, and pop in. And it was a good time.
and I think that's the one thing that's most important. Um, there are a lot of people out there who are thinking about starting a live stream or want to do it who haven't yet. And the one thing I would say is something that I've heard many others say: do what you love and have fun at it. So if it's something that you could get on and talk about, however often you decide to do it. A lot of people do it like once a week, maybe a couple times a week, where they could come on and they could talk about whatever their hobby is. Let's say, there are knitting channels, there are puppet building channels, there are channels of all kinds of stuff, woodworking channels.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there are venues for every single thing that you can think of. There are a couple channels I watch. Now, I don't get political on my channel. Two of the biggest channels I watch on YouTube happen to be political channels. I enjoy the content. I just don't want it on my channel.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that people can do if they really, really want to do it. And don't let anything stop you. Now, one of the things you're going to have people tell you is you need a good camera and you need a good mic. I'm going to tell you this right now. Screw the camera. Get a camera. Make sure it works. The mic, oh yeah, go for the better mic that you can get.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what's most important. People can deal with the visual clutter. Audio clutter, though, no. That's where they turn off. They can look away and not see there. If they're listening to something, though, that's where you're going to want to put the investment, is the mic. That's the first and foremost thing. Get the mic. Other than that, do what you love. Whether it's, like I said, now if you're doing a woodworking channel, you're going to need that camera to show the woodworking. Mm-hmm. If you're just doing a podcast type thing, you don't need a camera. I don't ever use a camera. I use a emoji. You don't need a camera. Doomcock uses an emoji.
Yeah.
No big deal. So don't buy into you got to be on camera, even though it's better. Statistically, it is better if you're on camera. But no, if you're going to do it, do it. That's the most important thing. And have fun.
Yeah.
You're going, and I'm going to warn you right now. You are going to have people who complain about something that you do. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And you're going to have people who love it. Do what you love. If you love it, that's fine. Anybody who doesn't like it, they can find another channel.
Mm-hmm.
They ignore them.
Yeah, because, one of the things I am going to be talking about on the channel very soon, and it's going to be a part of the channel, is when the baseball season starts on April 7th. I'm going to be talking about that.
Right.
I know there are going to be some people that are going to go, oh gosh, she's into sports ball. I only like one sport, and that's baseball.
Right.
I used to like two sports, baseball and football. Chargers left San Diego and went to LA, and I said I would never root for a team that goes to LA or is from LA. And I've stuck to my guns. And I also feel that the city of San Diego and the Chargers themselves dropped the ball. That team should still be in San Diego.
Yeah, it should, but unfortunately, it's not.
Yeah, but money talks, and that's why they're not.
Yeah, exactly.
So, shifting back to our main topic, I have another article from Bounty in the Comics, and it's by John F. Trent. It was posted yesterday on the 22nd. It says Bullseye and Elektra rumored to be recast for Marvel Studios' rumored Daredevil series. The rumors are swirling, and one of the latest indicates that Marvel Studios will recast both Bullseye and Elektra for a new Daredevil series on Disney Plus. A new Daredevil series has not been announced by Marvel Studios, but Disney placing all of the Defenders shows from Netflix that includes Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and Punisher does seem to indicate that Marvel Studios might be relaunching a new Daredevil series. On top of this, Charlie Cox reprised his role as Daredevil's alter ego, Matt Murdock, in the recently released Spider-Man No Way Home. Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin also played a significant role in the Hawkeye series on Disney+. Okay, it says, while the evidence appears to be adding up that Daredevil will get a new show, a recent rumor from Mikey Sutton at Gigosity claims that indeed Daredevil is getting his own show, and like the previous one, it will have a TVMA rating. Sutton claims when Marvel Studios' Daredevil reboot leaps onto Disney Plus, it'll be R rated. Sources indicate that the new MCU Daredevil series will be behind a parental lock. The scooper also claims sources indicate that Disney Plus Daredevil could debut by late 2023 or early 2024. Not only did Sutton claim the show is happening and that it will be TVMA, but in a follow-up scoop, he claimed Marvel Studios will be recasting Bullseye and Elektra. Bullseye was played by Wilson Bethel in the show's third season, while Elodie Young played Elektra in season 2 of the show, as well as in the Defenders miniseries. A source told Sutton Wilson Bethel wasn't a bad actor, but he certainly didn't look like Bullseye in the comics. That's not his fault. Jeff Loeb had an aversion in costumes. It seems like still Marvel Studios wants an actor with superior acting abilities. As for Elektra, Sutton noted Marvel Studios plans to recast Elektra. Sutton would also claim that Bullseye will wear a comic accurate costume and that he will be an assassin working for Kingpin. It's also possible he might join the Thunderbolts in the future. Charlie Cox definitely appears to be in favor of his character returning to TV rather than a feature film. Cox recently spoke with comicbook.com about Daredevil's future, where he revealed he'd like to see Daredevil back on TV rather than in a film franchise. He explained, I think all these characters lend themselves perfectly to the television format, because they are episodic in their original format. The deep fan base has learned to consume them in an episodic format in the comics. the thing I always said about season 1 of our show was that if you made the movie version, you kind of have to have him in the suit after 20 minutes, and you've got a lot of story to tell. And this is one of the mistakes I think the film made, which was that they tried to tell all the stories. They had Foggy, Elektra, Kingpin, Bullseye, and they had all those characters in 2 hours, he elaborated. We had 13 hours times 3 before we even bought in Bullseye. Do you know what I mean? So it would really be cool to do a Daredevil movie and to do this kind of one-off moment in time, Cox continued. But I think in terms of telling the story, it's more fun to have more time to do it. The only caveat is that it would be super cool to see DD on the big screen. That's the only thing that miss out. But even now, with movies, most of the movies you watch them streaming anyway, he added. As for the idea of the show being TVMA on Disney Plus, Cox is actually open to it being more family friendly, but he preferred it being more mature. He explained, I wouldn't put it past the folks at Marvel to be able to accomplish that. I'm such a fan of everything they've done so far. I wouldn't underestimate them at all. So if they wanted to make a more PG version of Daredevil, I back them to find a way to do where it feels totally in keeping with everything we've done. And maybe there's a little less blood, maybe there's a little whatever, but I back them to do it. And it goes on to say that he elaborated, my feeling is that the comics work best. The Daredevil comics for me are more exciting, readable, relatable when it lives in a darker space. Having said that, and obviously I'm thinking like Bendis Malieve is probably the best example of that. Having said that, and this is actually when this news that you talked about came out, I was texting with some of the guys from the show, and the text I wrote was Born Again. But having said that, Born Again is kind of a PG comic. It's not in the same world as the Bandits and Malieve stuff. It's not that dark, and it's one of the greats, he added. So it absolutely can work, but I guess you can't deny is Daredevil is never going to work as well in a PG world as Spider-Man does. Do you know what I mean? That's the point, he concluded. I think that the age of the character, the Christian guilt, his history with women and stuff, it's like a little bit mature. It has to be. So I'm going to ask what they ask at the end of this article. What do you think about Daredevil Return? Have you seen the original series that was on Netflix?
Having not had Netflix, no.
Okay. I can say that I watched the first season. I didn't watch any of the follow-up seasons after that. But I am willing to give a reboot a chance. But even before I do that, I want to go back and rewatch the original show that was on Netflix that's now on Disney Plus. And I've been, thinking of this idea for a while of possibly reviewing each and every episode from each and every season.
Cool.
Because I've got to be honest, there aren't too many current shows that are out there right now that are really catching my eye and make me want to watch them and possibly review them for the channel. But a show like Daredevil, I'd like to go back and revisit it and continue from where I left off. But in this case, I think it would be better if I start from the beginning and work my way all the way to the end of season 3. That's the idea I have right now. And
I like
I
that
did
idea.
go. Yeah. And I saw the movie with Ben Affleck. It wasn't bad. It certainly wasn't great, but it was somewhat watchable. You know, when it comes to Ben Affleck as an actor, I like him in some things, but I don't like him in everything I see him in. And that's just me.
I can't think of a lot of actors that I like everything they've been in. You know, they've got great roles and they've got some not so great roles.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's good to see. You know, as long as the story is good, even if the actor isn't the greatest for a role, whatever. But
And the Padawannabe says, I don't know if they can pull it off with a lower age rating. I don't think so either. I mean, to me, Daredevil is one of their darker, more grittier stories. So to water it down, I don't think it's going to work. But that's where they have to prove me wrong.
well, in this case, you're talking about taking wine and making Kool-Aid out of it, and it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
isn't going to
who
work.
wants that?
You're not going to have
Nobody
the
wants
same
that.
experience.
Mm.
You know, if you're wanting a glass of wine, you want a glass of wine, not a glass of Kool-Aid. And I'm sorry, you know, even though it might be a nice experience to have the glass of Kool-Aid, if you're looking for wine, why would you know? It's not the same. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Just go for the wine. Skip the Kool-Aid, go for the wine. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to our next story here. And this next story comes from Geek Tyrant. And the headline reads, Jared Leto says Tron 3 is getting closer and closer to happening. And this is by Joy Parr. And it goes on to say, let me get a better control of that. A few years ago, it was reported that Disney was developing Tron 3 and Jared Leto is attached to star in it. It was announced a couple of years later that Garth Davis, Lion, would be directing it. This seems to be a slow moving project, but according to Leto, the project is getting closer and closer to happening. He recently told Screen Rant. And let me go ahead and post the article in the chat in case anybody wants to read it. Because I know there are folks who have actually enjoyed both the original Tron and Tron Legacy. I'm one of them. So it goes on to say, I'm a super fan of Tron, and we are working hard on Tron with our incredible partners at Disney. Just an amazing group of creative people. We're getting closer. We're getting closer and closer, and who knows, something may be coming sooner than later. I love the Tron franchise. I'm a huge fan of the original film, and I love Joseph Kosinski's sequel, Tron Legacy. I was hoping to see the story continue, and it actually came incredibly close, but in the end, the Disney executives at the time shut it down, which is a shame. It sounded like it would have been awesome. Then this Jared Leto Tron project came to existence, and this is going to be different than what was coming before. It has been said that the movie could bring back previous cast members. Disney music executive Mitchell Lieb also previously said that the time is right for Tron 3 and they have a great script. We'll just have to wait and see what is going on with this and if Disney will actually move forward with it. If they do, I hope it really does tell a great story. So, it's just a rumor. Nothing's concrete. But I'm going to ask you, Captain Trek, I'm going to ask the Padawannabe and anyone else that watched this while we're live or is watching this on the replay, would you watch a third Tron movie?
Yeah, I would. I like Tron.
I definitely would. I enjoyed the original and I enjoyed Tron Legacy. You know, I thought it was pretty clever how they brought Jeff Bridges back and you know his character. And I remember watching the movie thinking, I wish I'd gone to see this in the theater because, you know, watching it at home, it just wasn't the same type of experience that you get in the theater.
Exactly. I didn't see the second one in the theater. I saw the first one in the theater. And I, too, had wished I'd gone to the theater to see it.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I could honestly see Disney going for a third Tron movie, especially with the fact being that they have a Tron roller coaster opening at Disney World soon.
Mm-hmm.
And welcome the Padawannabe. How you doing, brother?
Doing good. Hopefully you can hear me. This is working all right.
I can hear you, brother.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Doing good.
Good. So, what are your thoughts on some of the articles you've heard us talking about?
Well, let's see. I'll talk about that Tron thing real quick. I really enjoyed, I'll just go out on a limb and say most of us enjoyed the original way back in the day, and we always wanted to have some kind of remake come at some point. When the only thing I need to watch, I've heard really good things, is the cartoon. I guess they came out with a few years back, and that's gotten enough good rap that I've heard that I should check that out. But I really enjoyed the new Tron movie. I thought it tied in really well with the old story. You could easily find some holes in it and things like that, but I was very happy to see the original Tron, I fight for the user. I was glad to see him return and at least be involved. We all kind of want to know how he ended up being a slave again. But I thought all the scenes played up as well, if not better, than the originals. There was things like I noticed. I was like, okay, the light cycle scene was way more modernized and way more cool, but it was definitely different. And I could easily see people even nitpicking, oh, well, the lightsabers aren't supposed to turn like that. And just what, but I accepted it enough, and I thought now they just did one, right?
The Tron movies, they did two. They did the original Tron movie, and then they did Tron Legacy.
Okay, no, that's what I was trying to remember if they made two new ones, but they've only made the one new one. Okay,
Correct.
And I thought they did that one really good, and that the CGI for the deep faking or de-aging or whatever term they want to use for there, and that was still a pretty young thing, and I thought it looked really good. You know, enough. I would have been. I was convinced enough with the technology that I was seeing it on. I don't have state of the art televisions or anything like that, but I watched it, and even being from our generation, my mother, knows the actors, not personally, but she knows that she knows who they are, and she watched them, and she watched Tron. So I was like, you need to watch this movie and see this him looking like he did back then, and she enjoyed it too, and she's not a huge sci-fi fan, but I wanted them to make another one. They easily set it up to make another one. I had heard rumors over the past few months that the main actor, I forget his name,
Jeff Bridges,
but the son. I'm sorry, not the. Yeah, he is the main actor, but I guess it's his son in the new movie.
That was one iteration they discussed. Yes.
So I guess there was, because they come out in the real world at the end of the movie, and it's like, well, they totally set it up. Okay, is the machine gonna try and crack into reality? And with those new movies coming out, like Ready Player One, and for some reason I can't remember the other one I just watched that's real similar to that. But it sets it up for that exact kind of storyline, like a Tron storyline seems to fit what is kind of the trend in movie making right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not far off, it's still AI and all those things that are still what really could threaten us and things like that. And I would watch a new one for sure. But again, I'm a little more lenient on newer stuff than most, but I thought this movie did really well. I did want to see a little more throwbacks. Like, it would have been cool to see a little more of the tanks and the Devastators, and maybe a version of the spiders, some kind of game throwback stuff. But I get a kick out of the bikes and the disc competition, and that new car they had. That thing was pretty cool. I liked how the light stick just could turn into other vehicles.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder what they would do for a third one. How would they do it? What would they improve upon? What would they keep?
Well, I don't know what they could keep and what they couldn't, but I don't know what's left, like how much destruction actually takes place after they stop showing us what's on the grid. But, they've actually pulled a computer program into reality. So, there's going to be something. She's going to infect something, or somebody's going to find out what she is. They're going to find some way. They're going to find this old program. This easily sets up like Mother Brain versus reality kind of stuff. But it was that easy to come up with something like that. So I would assume Hollywood would do nothing like that, and they would come up with something completely different. And it may not make sense. It kind of depends on who are the creatives in charge. And I mean, Leto seems like somebody who is passionate about making movies. I guess I just don't know if I'm a fan of the movies he makes yet or not. I'm not sure. I can't say he's done a bad movie. I haven't wanted to rush out to see all of his stuff. So it's like, well. But so many actors we've seen over the past 10 to 20 years, it's like, how could they cast that person? And then it's like, I should just shut my mouth right now.
I've been there.
I have to totally give him a chance. I'll give him a chance. I'll give all this stuff a chance. I want it to work. You guys haven't watched it all, but I watched all the Masters of the Universe. I give it a chance, and I enjoyed it as much as I could. And there's just other things, that one, I think it's the people involved more than the series itself. of what happened, the controversy there. And that's kind of what is it could be the case here. Depending on who's involved and what they want to do. If they want to be involved with Tron because they love Tron, that's good. If they want to be involved with Tron because they want to change Tron, I just don't want to see more of it. Just I'd be happy if you made more Tron oriented stuff, but the way the storyline's going, you kind of have to go forward with it.
That's true.
I really don't think anybody would want to see past stories of the grid at this point.
Well, that's the thing, all the stories from right now that we're getting based on popular IPs that are taking place in the past. No, let's move the story forward. Let's come up with new ideas, new scenarios, and new situations for characters to get into.
I'm curious then. Have you both seen Ready Player One?
I have.
Do you consider that? Well, first, I guess I could ask if you even liked it.
I liked it for what it is.
Okay.
A good movie to sit down and watch for a couple of hours.
Now, a movie like that,
it's the greatest movie ever made.
I was just going to say a movie like that is obviously forwarding what they're going to be doing in movies because they tie a lot of virtual reality CGI into it. And what I was going to say, but that movie in particular is all about, like, the older of a person they can get to watch that movie that is involved in pop culture, the more that person will get out of it, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I guess people are calling them member berries now. So it's like, but that movie leans on those so hard. Is that what makes the movie bad, or is it just over CGI? Or because from what I understand from the movies we have we're kind of grouping into these movies. This particular, I don't know if COVID has anything to do it, but what's the way cinema has gone. I want them to do good. They can do good. We just have to see which way, who else they get here. I don't know. Well, the more I think about it, the more I want to contradict what I'm saying.
To answer your question about Ready Player One, I went and saw that movie with a couple of friends that actually read the book it was based on. And they didn't like the fact that they omitted things from the book when they made the movie. They said if they had included certain aspects of the book into the movie would have been better in their opinion.
Okay, that seems like a real common thing, though. Like most books will have scenes. It's like, why didn't they put that in the movie? And I don't know if unfortunately, I haven't read Ready Player One, so I don't know if there were scenes that you could see being cut for budget, or if it was just simply a choice, like maybe they didn't even make the scenes. Those friends you have, those would be questions you'd kind of have to ask them directly because they know from the book. And it's like Harry Potter movies, I can kind of relate that way. It's like some scenes I see why they cut them. Some I'm like, I don't understand why they cut them.
Well, some of the things they even mentioned in Ready Player One, it's the matter of getting the rights to be able to use those properties.
Yes, that's true. I was kind of amazed at how many things I was like, God, how did they do this? Mm-hmm. I mean, Steven Spielberg, obviously, he used some of his connections, I'm sure. But just how many different things, how many decades worth of things they reference there.
Yeah. Well, it's like seeing the DeLorean from Back to the Future. Yeah, it was CGI DeLorean, but still. Seeing the DeLorean on screen again, it was great.
Yeah, who didn't enjoy that? And then I only got to come in part way. What were some of the other topics you were covering?
DC Comics basically shutting down
Oh
in
yeah,
their offices due to Warner Brothers and being downsized into an office where everybody has to share the desk, share the materials. The other articles that we talked about was Godzilla versus Kong, at least the sequel, supposedly, according to rumor, filming starting on the sequel sometime later this year. And then we also talked about the 30th anniversary of the Next Generation season 5 episode Cause and Effect.
okay. Let's see here. So the Godzilla thing, I kind of agreed with you guys on a lot of stuff. I'm not exactly sure if they can go anywhere that would move the series forward somehow. They've done the space thing. They've done the fight the enemies on the planet thing. We've decided we're going to work with them because we fight against him almost every movie. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, the only thing we don't know where Godzilla's from, right? Like we've seen Kong's habitat. I don't think we've seen Godzilla's habitat. I don't know if that even matters or can wrap a story in itself, They did Mecha Godzilla. They did, I don't know. That's a tough one. Son of Godzilla. I don't know.
Well, Toei did do it in the original movie release when the movies were made in Japan. Whether they would attempt to do that here, who knows?
I was like, maybe like Godzilla versus Ultraman or something, But then it's gonna start getting crazy. I've enjoyed the Godzilla movies up till now, but I got a kick of that old one. What, the 2012 or whatever, the Matthew Broderick one.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed that one for what it was too. So gosh, I'm not entirely confident, but I'd watch it. Hopefully it's decent. Hopefully they can come up with something. Although I don't know what exactly they would use. It does seem like it's more of a showcase for that little actress right now.
Yeah.
Because I agreed. I thought some of the characters they killed off were. I'm really kind of surprised they were killing off those characters. Like, God, these were the ones that know the most about what's going on, and they're just sacrificing themselves.
Well, it's also getting an actor like Bryan Cranston and killing his character off when an actor like Bryan Cranston can carry your movie.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, and we don't know. I'm not sure if he was doing any other movies or anything at the time. Maybe he was only available for part of it, and maybe that's why he got that role. I'm not sure. Because I think he's pretty good. I'm surprised he doesn't do more stuff because he can play believable and unbelievable roles so well. I was really surprised to see Cranston in that Total Recall, but he did it. He did that part great.
I'm gonna look up and see what he's working on right now.
Geez, how long did Breaking Bad go? Is that a 10-year anniversary coming up?
I wouldn't be surprised if it's getting close to it.
Everybody's so crazy with that thing. Okay, and then there was the Star Trek. Now, what is this? You were saying it's a 30-year anniversary episode?
Yeah, 30th anniversary of the Next Generation Season 5 episode of Cause and Effect.
Oh, just a particular episode.
Yeah, just that one episode. I mean, let's face it, every episode that aired for Season 5 of Next Generation this year is going to be celebrated its 30th anniversary.
God, season 5, I'd have to watch again to see. It's probably about, well, around 5 years ago. I binged through all of them. Well, I can't say I finished the original series. I got about 120 deep, and I was like, that series is pretty long. But I did. I watched uh, uh, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and um, Enterprise, or Voyager and Enterprise, and all those. So I enjoyed all of them. If but season 5, I know that I'd have to watch again. I'd know him if I saw him for sure, because I seen, syndication in the '90s was crazy, and TNG was all over the place.
Mm-hmm. All right, so for Bryan Cranston, currently, as far as whether in production, pre-production, post-production, he's going to be in a movie called Jerry and Marge Go Large, and that's in post-production. And then there's a movie or a series called Argyle. I'm guessing it's a movie, and that's also in post-production. There's also another credit, Asteroid City, in post-production. And currently, as far as the TV series, he's in a series called Your Honor.
Oh, wow, he's busy.
Yeah.
And it's tough right now what what a lot of actors are choosing to be in, like we may never see, I mean, not see, but they might be less trafficked, if they don't hit the theaters and just go to some streaming company. I don't think everybody's going to have Chris Pratt's luck.
No, and even with Chris Pratt, Hollywood's still trying to cancel him.
Yeah, white male. And I'm sure there's still probably some Schwarzenegger haters that are still trying to bring down the family, because I don't know if he ever really fully recovered. I mean, people don't hate on him, but that stupid controversy he went through.
Yeah.
And I know I'm forgetting the other one. I covered 2 of them. And then the third one was, but I would look forward to those anniversary things. Are they doing any special shows or anything coming up? Do we know?
As far as Breaking Bad related,
let
me check.
For the Star Trek, for the anniversary shows. Are they planning stuff at conventions, or are they doing anything for those things?
There might be some people who know about those episodes turning 30 this year, and they might talk about them at the conventions. But I haven't heard anything as far as public knowledge. And
okay, watch for TNG on TNT this year. Okay, right, and what did I miss? There was one other thing. It's Godzilla, and then
we were talking about Godzilla. We were talking about cause and effect, and we were talking about DC.
Oh yeah, the comics.
Yeah,
that I wanted to touch on this real quick. That'll take a quick minute. Wanted to touch on that. I remember seeing a lot of stuff in the '90s. How it was, if we read comics in the '90s, they were great, and there were so many different companies that did so well, and they even kind of admitted then that it got super grandiose. If you've seen any of those guys that talk about after, kind of when some of the better artists started leaving, that's kind of why they were leaving, because they knew it wasn't sustainable. So a lot of those guys went out and started their own art schools or writing schools and trade schools, more or less, for comic books, and it just, it wasn't sustainable. And I don't know if they pulled back the way they needed to, but it doesn't surprise me at all that kind of Although it does surprise me that I would think a lot of these people would be able to do this stuff at home and just be able to digitally transfer it in.
Oh,
So
you,
that's all I was
you got to
thinking.
also look at the part where, the reason why they were doing it from home is because everything going on with the coof. So a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
people, started doing their work from home and then submitting it, over the internet to their bosses. And when Warner Brothers decides, oh, wait a minute, we're saving money by not having people here.
Oh, and then they probably downgraded their office space.
They did, because now they're all having to share an office space.
God, hey, that's what they're gonna do, man.
Yep. All right.
Okay.
So switching gears, I have an article here from Bounding in the Comics, and it's by John F. Trent. It was actually posted on the 18th. I was going to try to get it in Sunday's edition, but like I said, in the early part of this live stream, there are points where I have to look at the different stories I want to cover and realize there's just too many, so cuts had to be made. So this article says the Mandalorian rumor claims Grogu will use IG-11 as a mech suit.
Oh.
And it says a relatively recent rumor for the upcoming third season of The Mandalorian claims that Baby Yoda, aka Grogu, will use IG-11 as a mech suit. This new rumor comes from Making Star Wars that bluntly states Grogu literally sits inside the chest of a modified IG-11 who has been reinforced with Beskar and has been turned into the foundling suit of Mandalorian armor. On top of IG-11 being Grogu's suit of armor, Making Star Wars also claims that the droid gives him data on probabilities of success and protects the child when needed. If this sounds familiar, it should. It's what Rian Johnson did with BB-8 in The Last Jedi, and the droid hacks a First Order AT-ST walker and blasts the docking bay door to smithereens. As for IG-11, if you recall, the droid blew itself up in one of the dumbest moments in The Mandalorian during the show's season 1 finale. I'll wait for this ad to...
Is that what the article
complete.
says? Did it say one of the dumbest moments?
Yes, that is what the author of the article did say.
Oh, gosh.
And it says, after mowing down numerous stormtroopers while entering a city on Navarro, IG-11 reunites with Din Djarin, Cara Dune, and Greef Karga. The group then flees through a number of underground passages before arriving at a lava river and boarding a dilapidated boat. As the boat is about to exit into the open, and I'm reading it exactly how it's written here in the article, and it's not me tripping up the words or anything, a number of stormtroopers wait in ambush. In order to escape, IG-11 decides to sacrifice itself via self-destruction in order to take out the stormtroopers. Much like the Death Star in Return of the Jedi, IG-11 is blown to smithereens, and there appears to be absolutely no evidence of the droid left after the explosion.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm. Nevertheless, the rumor claims that IG-11 will return, and he will be used as a type of mechanized armor for Grogu in the third season of The Mandalorian. It looks like more of the same with Disney Star Wars, and they are now just ripping off their own terrible ideas. If you didn't think Disney Star Wars could get worse after the sequel trilogy. The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett are handing you their beer and telling you to hold it. All right, gentlemen. What do you think about this rumor of IG-11 becoming the mech suit for Grogu? I think it's stupid. I really do.
I really instantly get is it General Krang, Commander Kang or something from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Crane.
Okay, that is exact. That's what I'm immediately thinking. I was like, so he's gonna be like in his stomach? I'm like, I don't know. Do I think that that could be what they're doing? Oh yeah, for sure, totally.
Wow.
Can I picture it? Yes. Can I see it working? Yes. Can it be taken 100% seriously? No.
No.
If they're seriously gonna put this in there, it has to have some comedic value without disintegrating the integrity that show has created already. This is wow, this is a tightrope, man. Could it be fun and
it's a
enjoyable?
terrible idea.
You know, I don't know. I think it'd be fun. I definitely think if they do this, something they do is gonna make me laugh. But it does. There's not enough in Star Wars that they have to show me how it makes sense.
I could see them making Grogu his own Mandalorian armor out of scrap metal from an IG unit, but
they have to make it make sense. See, we don't know this is the only thing I don't know if they can cover enough time here. And but what I mean by that is we don't know exactly how long Grogu was with Luke. So we don't really know how far Grogu advanced. We did see what he did, and what he did in the show was crazy compared to what he was doing before. So we can only assume he can do way more than we've seen so far. And he's just a step away from doing a lot more. But they're going to have, and bringing IG-11 back, I can see that simply being the explosion caused his head to blow off the body unit, where his brain circuitry could still be around. And as far as making another IG-11 unit, maybe they get this. I can see them working with Peli here, much like they did making his Starfighter. But him being able to control it and work it, that doesn't make sense at all. So
no.
You have to give me a damn good story how he understands that stuff. And maybe while he was with Luke, he learned to talk to machinery or droids. I don't know. Because that would that would mean a lot, because it always meant there was a big difference between the individuals that could actually communicate with the droids compared to people that couldn't. There was definitely a ease of things going on there, but I just have to see it. I have to see how they're going to do it. And wow, they got to do something really, 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 really convincing to make this work. Because right now it doesn't really make sense.
Well, how they're going to do it, if they're going to do it, or if this is just, rumor, like it's been saying in the story, that, somebody's just trying to get eyeballs on it. And yes, it got my attention, but it was more of I don't see them going this way. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking to myself, I can see this actually happening, just because the the lack of creativity you see in Hollywood nowadays.
Well, they did do this sort of thing in an episode of Bad Batch for a minute. It was during a battle, and one of the guys who is more technical jumps on top of a battle droid and hacks into the system of the droid. So then he's actually riding this droid kind of piggyback on the shoulders, and he's remote controlling it. You know, so it's like, okay, I get it. It's kind of his mech suit, but he's not in it. And that was kind of interesting, you know, a fighting tactic. It's like, oh, that's pretty good. But now they're going to, like, it's going to be his armor the whole time. Like, it'll be the thing he jumps in when he gets out of the vehicle now. Is he going to carry Din now? Or just run alongside him while Din's cruising with his jetpack? Or maybe they can both fly now.
Who knows? What do you think, Captain? Captain must have to step away from the computer for a moment.
I talked him under the table. I'm sorry.
That's all right. He might have had to step away for a moment.
I have heard of this rumor for a while now, and I just keep thinking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle guy, you know, like the android body, and then it's just a little cubby where he sits, and then they'll have a little visor, a little Mandalore or a Beskar armor, and it'll look like a Mandalorian visor, and we'll just see his face and his ears and through the visor.
Who knows? All right, so this next article I have here from About in the Comics, it was posted on the 20th, and it's by Spencer McCauley. It says G4 TV Senior Vice President Blair Try that again. G4 TV Senior Vice President Blair Herter exits network after telling viewers who disagreed with Frost's rant, "Don't watch us." Well, guess what? They haven't been watching. Just a little over 2 months after declaring he was proud to work at a place that makes stuff like X-Play host Indian Frost Black famous on air rant against sexism in gaming, G4 TV Senior Vice President Blair Herter has exited the network for greener pastures. Taking to Twitter on March 18th, Herter announced to his followers, "Life is short and making memories with the ones you love is the most important thing in the world. Here's to the next great Herter family adventure." Goodbye at G4 TV and America, he added before revealing his new place of employment. Hello at Team Liquid and France. Alongside his tweet, the now former G4 executive shared a video in which WWE wrestler and G4 host Xavier Woods humorously played the part of Herter, providing further insight into his decision to leave the network for the professional esports organization. "Hi guys, it's me, Blair Herter." Obviously, Woods began the video. "I've been working out a little bit, been in the sun a little bit, hair's growing out a little bit. You know, we got to get it cut soon. But I've got some very important news I want to share with you guys. I want to take you on a journey, a ride, if you will," he continued. 3 years ago, me and my beautiful, gorgeous wife, Jessica, were drinking wine in Amsterdam, like we do, baller, and we decided that one day we want to live here. Let's do it. However, Woods, as Herter explained, and as we started getting our affairs in order, G4 called and said, "Hey, let's rebuild the network." I said, "You know what? I'd love to be a part of that." "Things have been incredible here at G4, he said. I've loved every single second that I've had, but as we move along in our story, as you all know, the pandemic hit. We've had to wear masks. We've had to get shots. It's been tumultuous for everyone. And that's when my wife and I sat down and said, I think we got to get out of there. We got to make sure our son has a world travel life. And then something happened that near and dear to my heart hurt me. The executive revealed my mother was diagnosed with cancer and then she beat it, so she's doing just fine. And that again was another factor that told me I had to take my family and give them this experience that I didn't have, that I didn't get when I was growing up. I wanted to give my son a future that he could talk about when he was older, that could help him get jobs, possibly to help him see more world traveled. And that is why I am now going to be moving with my family to the Netherlands. I thank all of you for all the love and all the well wishes and the friendly times. Herder ultimately concluded. And you think that just because I'm leaving, it's a sad time? No, 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 no. It now means that all of my lovely friends have a place to stay when they jump across the pond to the Netherlands. Again, I'm Blair Herder, and I love you guys. As noted above, Herder's exit comes roughly 9 weeks after not only airing the airing of Frost's infamous rant, but his own vocal support of her rhetoric. Grateful to spend my life with a woman who smashed glass ceilings. Honored to work with the women of G4 TV's past and humans like Frost today. Proud to work at a place that makes stuff like this. Wrote Herder on January 12th, retweeting G4's clip of Frost's attack against her audience. If you don't hear the below, unfollow me and don't watch us. We're not for you. Well, people haven't been watching. They've been leaving in droves. Further, his departure also follows just 1 week after G4 seemingly reversed her support of Frost's stance that the network did not hire its female on-air talent solely to be nice on the eyes for viewers by hosting notorious borderline NSFW Twitch streamer Caitlin Amaranth Siragusa for a segment centered explicitly around her sex appeal. As of writing, it is unknown both what role Herder will have with Team Liquid nor who will replace him at G4. Well, I think between, and this is just my opinion, between, Frost's rant and his support, G4's viewership going down, and then bringing in Amaranth, I think it's the company trying to right the ship. And honestly, it's too late for them to do that. Once you badmouth the fans, once you tell the fans that they're not needed, well, guess what? We're not going to come back to a place we're not wanted. We're going to go find some place else to be. And that's what the fans have done. So they screwed the pooch. That's just my opinion on it.
Oh, is he still not back yet? Yeah, this is real unfortunate. Now, Blair Herder, that seems like a name. Was he? I want to say he used to be on the show every once in a while, or like a special reporter or something. That name sounds very familiar from back in the day, but I might be mistaken. And he said we shouldn't be sad, and it's like, but I am, because we didn't. He came back for reasons. He wanted to do a good show, and that was taken from him and us. And it was taken from us in a way that we won't ever be able to get this show back. Like, the entire company is being shut down. I'd be surprised if this if Frost is not contractually liable for some of the damage that she did, because it's not like she just lost her job, you know what I mean? And they're rebranding the company and doing everything now, so she just really, I feel for the people that had jobs.
I feel for the people that had jobs, but for this senior vice president and everybody who started going off while Frost was ranting
Oh yeah,
on G4's return, that was stupid. They
yeah,
shot themselves in the foot.
they should. I mean, honestly, only because of the time we're living in now. 20 years ago, in the 90s, whenever you want to say, in the past, somebody would have ran out and cut the feed. They would have went to something else in the middle of her talking. There's no way she would have been able to continue her prerogative so much so. Hang on 1 second here.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
I'm going to wait for the Padawannabe to come back. Captain, are you still there, brother?
Oh, sorry. I thought I put it on mute there. I had to step away for a second.
That's all right, brother.
Yeah, I just.
Oh, shoot! I stepped away. I thought I unmuted, and I've been talking. Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
It's all right. I was thinking maybe you had to get up and do something real quick, and it was one of those situations where I don't have time to let you know. I got to get up and do it now.
Yeah, basically, yeah, that's one of those type of situations. Yes.
Boomer. No.
Padawannabe. Come on, man.
I kind of did the same thing, so.
I mean, I've done it. I'm not gonna sit here and go, "Well, I've never done it." When I've done it, I've had times where I've pressed the mute button on my mic and forgot to press it again so people can hear me. So here I am running my mouth and nobody's hearing what I'm saying.
But yeah, I'm a little sad about this. But I mean, I thought it was ridiculous, the whooping and the hollering that they were doing. When I saw Adam Sessler doing that, I was just like, really? What? I didn't know he was like that. I really liked him on the show before. What is going on? It really confused me as an old fan watching that. But yes, they way overcorrected. When I saw what they did in response to it, I was like, oh, guys, that's not going to save it. That's not what they used to do before on X-Play or G4. The women they had on there were willing to do things that were fun for them. They wouldn't have done it if they felt demeaned at all. And they weren't trying to be over-sexual. G4 just, I think, got lucky in their hostesses and had some very attractive women, Happens sometimes, every once in a while.
There's some attractive women on YouTube, so, Personally, I'd rather watch YouTube than G4, but that's just me.
Same here. Not to say I didn't watch G4 back in the day. I did.
Back in the day, yeah.
But back in the day, I'll say, yeah, the show, they had some cute girls on there in bikinis and skimpy outfits every once in a while. But that is definitely not why I watch the show. As far as being a man in his 20s in that era, that was a bonus for watching the show. But that show was very good. All the segments they did on those shows were good. Both the show, X-Play and Attack of the Show.
Mm-hmm.
And even the guys on there, I like them a lot. That's why I was really shocked to see all this stuff that Adam's, all his tweets and things like that after it all went down. I was like, wow, this is not, I didn't know it was like that.
It just goes to show you don't truly know any of these personalities that you see on screen.
That's true. That's
It-
true. More true.
all right, so I've got one more article after this next one before I wrap it up. And this time I actually am going to wrap it up, unlike on Sunday, where I said I was going to wrap it up, and that just kept going for another hour.
I couldn't help but razz you a little bit for that one.
I know. I got to razz myself too. You got to be able to make fun of yourself and laugh at yourself. All right, so this next article from Bounding in the Comics, it was written by John F. Trent, posted yesterday. It says Andrew Garfield weighs in on Hollywood casting practices, warns about the death of imagination. Well, that's what we've all been talking about. It says Spider-Man No Way Home and Hacksaw Ridge actor. And speaking of Hacksaw Ridge, if you two haven't seen Hacksaw Ridge, I do recommend that movie. It's a very good movie.
I have seen that.
Okay. But the article says Spider-Man No Way Home and Hacksaw Ridge actor Andrew Garfield recently weighed in on Hollywood's current casting practices and the discussion surrounding whether or not certain actors can play certain characters. And it goes on to say, speaking with the Telegraph about his latest film on Netflix, Tick, Tick, Boom, Garfield was asked about Hollywood's casting practices and whether or not straight actors can play gay characters. Garfield responded, I think it's two different conversations getting conflated. He explained, one is about equality of opportunity, and I'm completely in on that, because we should want a world in which no matter your sexual orientation, your color, or your heritage, everybody gets a fair whack. But the other is about empathetic imagination, and if we only allow people to be cast as exactly who they are, it'll be the death of it. And it goes on to say, Garfield then added, so the two separate conversations have to happen simultaneously because I'm not willing to support the death of empathetic imagination. It goes on to say, it's what we need most as a culture. It's beautiful. He goes on to continue by saying, it's the only thing that's going to save us right now, he concluded. And Garfield's comments are similar to recent comments made by Ian McKellen, known for his roles as Gandalf in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, as well as his role as Magneto in the X-Men franchise. Speaking with BBC media editor Armand Rajan about the criticism surrounding Helen Mirren taking on the role of Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir in the biopic Golda, McKellen said there are two things. Is the argument that a Gentile cannot play a Jew, or is the argument, therefore, that a Jew cannot play a Gentile? He continued by questioning, is it the argument that a straight man cannot play a gay part? And if so, does that mean I can't play straight parts and I'm not allowed to explore the fascinating subject of heterosexuality in Macbeth? And that's what Ian McKellen said. Surely not, McKellen concluded. We're acting, we're pretending. Both actors make valid points, however, the discussion is also a little bit more complex than both make it out to be. Actors should be cast to match up to how their characters have been previously portrayed in the source material that is being adapted, or how the historical figure looked in real life. Casting directors should not be casting Scarlett Johansson to play Ronald Reagan. In fact, they shouldn't be casting any female actors to play a male character. That's not to say that Scarlett Johansson should not be cast to play Dante Tex Gill. gangster and massage parlor owner born in 1952 that was born female but dressed like a man. That character, based on the historical figure, is clearly a woman who cross-dressed as a man. Just as female actors should not be cast to play a male character, male actors should not be cast to play a female character. This should be common sense, but in today's Hollywood, they seem to have thrown that attribute away. Okay. Not only should actors gender align with the character's gender, but other physical attributes such as race should align as well. That's not to say you need a one-to-one match. The actor should be able to look like the character. You shouldn't have Nicolas Cage playing Black Panther or Ryan Gosling playing Martin Luther King Jr. or Denzel Washington playing Bruce Lee. As such, you shouldn't have Candace Patton playing Lois Lane or Thandie Newton playing Queen Elizabeth or Simu Liu playing Bass Reeves. These actors do not align with characters they would be playing. At the same time, a person's sexual orientation should not prevent them from playing any characters because their sexual orientation has nothing to do with their physical appearance and the physical appearance of the character. Ian McKellen is a perfect example. He's a gay man who played a heterosexual man in Magneto in the X-Men franchise, as well as Gandalf, whose sexual orientation is never even discussed. Neil Patrick Harris is another example. He's also a gay man who played as a heterosexual man in Gone Girl. You also have Sean Penn, a heterosexual man who played a gay activist, Harvey Milk. While it is definitely a nuanced discussion, it's also quite simple as well. Actors should be cast to match their characters they're playing, especially if there are clear descriptors of what the character looks like found in the source material or in real life. If there are no clear descriptors, you want to get to the best person for the role, and that choice will obviously be a discussion left to the director, casting director, producers, as well as studio executives. Goes on to say, obviously, movie magic is a thing, and even age is not really a requirement when it comes to ensuring an actor looks like the character. The stuff they can do with makeup can make one look a whole lot older, and in some cases younger as well. And that's not even mentioning the de-aging technology they are constantly improving. Unfortunately, the simple idea has been rejected by Hollywood. They don't care if the characters match up with the source material, especially if those characters are white. They are willing to race and gender swap to their heart's content, but rarely do you see those race and gender swaps going the other way. Just look to Amazon Studios' The Rings of Power, or anything Marvel Studios has put out over the last year. And, you know, an actor is an actor. I do agree with them that if it's an historical figure, then you want somebody who will, depict that historical figure. And even if they have to use makeup, have that person look like that historical figure. Well, if is a character that has non-descriptors, again, like the article says, then have at it. Just write a broad description for a character and don't specify male or female because it can be anybody. And I'm going to go ahead and mute Captain Trek because he...
Huh? Oh, yeah.
You were snoring, brother.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I've been here listening. Right. Wow, I'm sorry.
That's all right, brother. I'm thinking of myself, I'm bored Captain Trek.
No, not at all. I absolutely love listening to your stuff. In fact, I'm probably going to come back and listen to it again tomorrow.
Well, yeah, you can listen to yourself. No, I'm kidding.
Thank you.
I'm kidding.
Thank you.
I'm kidding. I was wondering what that was.
All right, I'm just gonna play this. I'm just gonna play this for you, Captain Trek. This is
Okay.
what you're thinking about us right now. So I hope you get a laugh out of this.
How many assholes we got on this ship anyhow? Yo! I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes.
Yo,
I got a kick out of that.
Oh, that's how it is every day.
All right. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on this article as far as, Andrew Garfield weighing in on whether or not, the person makes a big difference playing a part of the role. And it does in the case of historical figures. But if you have, like I said, nondescriptor, and even the article said it, then, cast anybody who fits the role and can do the role the best. What do you guys think?
Right. Oh, absolutely. I absolutely think that they should pick the best person to play the role. Not necessarily have to fit everything.
well, that did used to be how they picked the actor or actress for a role.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, okay, we want this accent. We want kind of these movements. We want her to be kind of this way or he be this way. Can you do that? Go for it. Oh, you did that good. Thank you. You got the job. Actually, I want to do this with the character. Next. I mean, that's, they're not sitting there taking, hey, what are your thoughts on our script? I don't understand that aspect.
Well, like Star Trek had that one episode with Abraham Lincoln, whereas now they put in a fat black woman in place of Abraham Lincoln.
Did I miss something? Crap. I missed something.
And, just that wouldn't historically fit.
No.
And no, yeah, unless they were doing something with the timeline and they were like, oh, that's wrong. We need to fix that. But I mean, what they're saying by their standards, okay, you can gender swap like elves. We obviously can't cast elves because nobody's an elf.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't legitimately cast dwarves because that would probably be a lawsuit. But by the letter of the law, we would have to cast dwarves as dwarves, right? Because nobody else knows how to act like a dwarf. And kind of what they're saying. I watched this stand-up comedy show on a streaming service a while back, and the comic makes a good point right along these because it's exactly what we're talking about, and it has to do with Cranston. When he did that movie where he played a quadriplegic, him and Kevin Hart were in the movie. He got a lot of flack for playing a quadriplegic because he's not handicapped. And it's like, well, if you cast a quadriplegic, he's not acting. Does he even know how to act like this character, or is he just going to act like himself? That's the whole point of the word acting, just like they were saying, we get to pretend, and I'm really glad the article touched on Ian McClellan so much and what he said and because what he says brings so much weight and a validity to the argument. Otherwise, it's just it's just another white guy saying these things. So I'm glad they put these. I did happen to read this particular article, and I'm glad that you read the whole thing the way you did, because I think I have no problem with any of this stuff, but it's got to be both ways, always. Like, just like he can play straight men, so straight men can play gay men. Or let's get crazy. Non-binary can play transgender. I don't know. Get nuts. What the hell? Do whatever you want to do. If you're good enough to get the role, get it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see a lot of people doing all. Where's the controversy over Jared Leto? He's none of the roles he takes, and he gets awards, but nobody says anything about it. I just don't understand why some are really suspect to this thing, and then other people it don't matter at all. And it's the same case kind of thing, they want equal rights. It's got to be equal rights. It can't, we can't overcompensate. Just bring everybody up to one level. We can't tilt the scales. We just need to make them all even. And I'm fine with that. But God, it works both ways. It works always. You can't have one without the other. It's, then it creates, because then you go into all the things. It's like, well, if you want those roles to be taken by those people, then you need those writers to write those roles. And then you're going to complain because we don't have enough of those writers in the industry. And it's creating its own circle of just, that's not how you solve the problem. You just roll into what we're doing and integrate. And that's all we can do. I don't know.
Yeah. I did want to bring up a good example of an actor who wasn't, a dwarf, but he played one in Lord of the Rings, and that's John Rhys Davies as Gimli. He wasn't a dwarf, but the way they shot it, it worked.
Not a small man at all.
No.
What do you think, Trek?
Well,
what do you think about this ridiculously realistic topic we're dealing with right now?
Some of the realism I would rather escape from. That's kind of why, that's kind of why when they're talking about realism in movies, it's like, I don't want it. I use movies to escape. I don't, like Star Trek. I don't want a dystopian future. We already have a dystopian future. Let's go back to where it's hopeful.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that timeline is gone. Erased from existence.
I'll still carry its torch, and I'll still tell people to watch it.
Oh,
That's
yes.
the Star Trek you should watch.
There's plenty more good than there is bad right now, and there will be. I can't see how they can make 40 years of bad.
Oh, well, it would take them longer to make, because remember, this was back in the day when they had 26 episode seasons. Now they have 10 episode seasons. It'd take them 50 years just to make
even close to the same amount of content. Yeah,
exactly.
Well, I really enjoyed talking to you guys. I do have to step out, though. I wanted to stay long. I wanted to jump in sooner, but things just got super busy, and I just don't have a lot of time. But I want to throw appreciation to you both for including me in the conversation.
Not
and
a problem, Padawannabe.
Try and get in on one of these a little sooner sometime.
You're welcome anytime. Pop Talk's an open mic situation, and you're both always welcome to come on if you have the time.
Thank
you again, and pleasure talking to you, Trek, and I'll talk to you later, Pacific.
All right. You have a good night, brother.
Everybody.
All right. So our final article for tonight is Kanye West. And this is an article from Variety. It's by Jem Aswad. It was posted yesterday. It says Kanye West can't perform at the Grammys, but he can still attend. What happens if he wins? Well, then if he wins, you let him up on stage to collect his award. All right, so it says updated, and In the wake of the not entirely unexpected news that Kanye West has been barred from performing at the Grammy Awards due to his concerning online behavior, has not been barred from attending the show, sources tell Variety. That means West, who is up for 5 awards around his Donda album, including the top prize of Album of the Year, can walk the red carpet, attend and accept awards at both the premiere ceremony, the live streamed event before the main show, where non televised awards are given out, and the main show itself. It's also possible that he could hold a competing event that would draw viewers away from the Grammys, a spiteful, if not out of character move that arguably would harm the many fellow artists performing on the show more than the show itself. In fact, unconfirmed rumors state that he is planning just such an event with Drake, another artist with a rocky Grammy history, although a rep for Drake denied that claim. A rep for West did not respond to requests for comment. While it's unclear how far conversations about a West Grammy performance have progressed, in fact, incomplete performance plans just 2 weeks ago before the show could have been a contributing factor to the decision. A quick look at his recent social media posts, videos, and concert performances give ample reasons for why a performance on live network television would be prohibitively problematic despite the ratings it would draw. Recent weeks have included a racial slur directed at Grammys host Trevor Noah in response to comments Noah made on The Daily Show about West's public behavior toward his estranged wife, Kim Kardashian. Repeated public support for accused sex offender Marilyn Manson, and unrepented homophobe DaBaby, and vague threats against Kardashian's new boyfriend Pete Davidson. There are also his past misguided comments about slavery and Harriet Tubman, his polarizing support for former President Trump, and his own stated plan to run for president in 2024. Reps for the Recording Academy, CBS, and Noah all declined requests for comment on the issue, although Noah wrote a lengthy conciliatory Instagram post about West's slur, which has since been deleted. Ironically, sources tell Variety that West was one of the many artists that Recording Academy CEO Harvey Mason Jr. and other Grammy execs have reached out to in recent months as part of a wide-ranging campaign to grow the organization's diversity and relevance, especially in the light of the ugly allegations about a boys' club and insider dealings that those after former CEO Deborah Dugan's abrupt dismissal just before the 2020 awards, and after the weekend was shockingly excluded from all 2021 nominations. Dugan and the Academy settled their lawsuit last year. The Academy quickly eliminated the secret nominating committees that were presumably responsible for the weekend's exclusion. While some commenters, most notably rapper West collaborator The Game, have attempted to attach a racial narrative to the Grammys decision, there are multiple more tangible reasons why his performance would be called off. It is also worth noting that Recording Academy CEO Harvey Mason Jr. has said he argues successfully to expand the number of Album of the Year nominees from 8 to 10, beginning with the 2022 awards, because hip-hop was not represented, and the beneficiary of that decision was West's Donda album. So what happens next? If West does attend the show and walk the red carpet, the Grammys would be under no obligation to broadcast his comments on a live stream or a pre-show, even though other outlets doubtless would. And if he wins awards at the premiere ceremony, which is live stream on Grammy.com, or even during the main show, producers presumably would hit the mute button and even cut the commercial the moment his comments began veering into troubled waters. While none of those are foolproof solutions, what if he walks the red carpet carrying a fake decapitated Pete Davidson head? There are easier scenarios to control. The situation seems certain to evolve further in the 13 days before the Grammy Awards. One thing is for sure, we and millions of others will be watching. Well, I mean, they know what Kanye West is all about.
Mm-hmm.
And Kanye West doesn't answer to anybody. He's his own person.
And
So,
I hate to say it, but the main issue that they're having is the fact that he's a Trump supporter.
mm-hmm.
Like I said, I don't get into politics on my channel. I don't, if you like somebody, I say, support whoever you like. And I think that's his right. So what? Let him support Trump. I don't care. Unless he goes into territory he shouldn't go into, then what's the big deal?
There is no big deal. That's the thing. They're trying to make it a big deal.
He's not going to walk across there with some, satanic symbol or some, decapitated head. They're worried about him speaking good about Trump. That's the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. It's exactly that. It's because he doesn't support their current, political beliefs and stance and where the pendulum is swinging, and he's opposition to them, and they don't like it.
And I am. I'll put it this way: if the positions were reversed, I would stand up and say the same exact thing. If it was a conservative president and somebody who was against that, I would say they have every right to stand up and speak on behalf of who they supported. No big deal. I don't have any issue with that. It's when you're talking about taking away somebody's right to free thought and free speech. And we have to stop that. We have to stop that. I think that is what's important. This man needs to be up on stage. If he wins, he deserves the right to give his speech. Period. Give him his 30 seconds. Let him say what he wants. Kick him off stage like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Play him out with the music. That's fine. But, give him his time and be, we're assuming he's going to win. Who knows?
He may not.
Exactly. And if he doesn't win, it doesn't, it's a non-issue. Unless they're kind of secretly revealing that he won. I mean,
Stranger things have happened. But
yeah.
He should be allowed to walk the red carpet. He should be allowed to accept his award. And he should be allowed to perform because he has fans.
Exactly. I'm not among them. I don't particularly care for his artistic style, but I'll stand up and support his absolute right to do it.
Mm-hmm.
The fact he has fans, yeah, good. He has every right to do it. I
does.
fully support that.
And let's see. Nerportal saying, sup, GMC.
Yo,
But,
guys.
you know, I have no issue with Kanye West.
Mm-mm.
And I know someone's going to take issue with me saying that, but I really have no issue with him because he lets you know where he stands. And I like people like that. They let you know where they stand. They're not hiding anything. They're upfront. And that's what I prefer when I deal with people. Be upfront with me. Don't put on this face. Don't pretend, just let me know. Be real. What do you guys think? GMC, Nerdporial, anyone else who might be lurking?
I'd love to know what others think. That's the thing. I think that's one thing that we've been missing a lot out on is the conversations. That's why I like having Morning Brew, because it's all about the conversations for me.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I decided Pop Talk's going to be an open mic situation, because I don't want folks to hear my point of view each and every time I do an episode of Pop Talk. I want other points of view. Maybe someone will bring up something I didn't think of, or have a certain point of view where we can all just sit there and just take in what they've just said and think about it.
Exactly. That's what I appreciate most.
I mean, I'm not going to come on here and say it's an open mic. Then the moment somebody says something I don't agree with, tell them you're on, you're on, you're on. Now you're booted. No. I'm going to be an adult. I'm going to listen to your point of view. We may agree, we may still disagree, but at least we're having constructive discourse.
Exactly.
And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Captain Trek. You can catch him every weekday morning for the morning brew, starting at 7 a.m. Central Time.
6 a.m. Central, 7 a.m. Eastern. I've thought about moving it back to 7, but right now it's at 6.
All right. Because I know the other day you were saying that thanks to StreamYards, it wasn't scheduling you properly.
Right. That's why I'm having to actually schedule it at 5 in order to get. It's one of the things where StreamYard is set to European time. And so it's not yet daylight savings time there. So I have to remember to set it up an hour early because it's still winter time there, not summer.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's confusing.
It's one of those things you have to, dot your I's, cross your T's. I mean, I've had times where I've scheduled, a live stream, and then I look at it on the YouTube side. I'm going, oh, wait a minute, that's the wrong time. So I've actually changed it on the YouTube side to get it to the correct time
Yeah.
after having already done it through StreamYard. But I do believe, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this edition of Pop Talk. Captain Trek, thank you very much for coming on. Really appreciate it. And again, one more plug for Captain Trek. Catch him on the Morning Brew tomorrow morning. Do you have any guests lined up for tomorrow morning?
No, I don't yet.
Okay.
I've reached out to a couple of people. I haven't heard back from them, but never know.
Mm-hmm. Anybody can pop on.
That's right.
So before I sign off for the night, I do want to thank you, of course, Captain Trek. I also want to thank the Nerdporial Life Form. I want to thank GMC. Thank you, brother. I also want to thank the Padawannabe for not only being in the chat, but also being on the panel. And I also want to thank Spock's Friday Nights. Thank you very much. And that should be everybody who is in the chat during the live stream. But if you are catching this on the replay, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. I know you have many other choices here on YouTube to watch a live stream. And I'm glad you at least spent a few moments here with PACIFIC414. So, thank you all very much. Have a good night, and
This has been a test of the emergency Hypnotoad system. Had this been an actual hypnosis, you would go limp and watch whatever crap comes on next.